back to Unveil the Future podcast. As always, we're on a journey to discover some of the latest advancements and ideas shaping tomorrow's world. And this is episode 4. My name is Taoshen, your host for the series. And we're very pleased to announce that we're already halfway throughout this exciting season. And now, as always, today we have a very special guest joining us. He is a trailblazer at the forefront of environmental conservation and biodiversity research, Professor Ingolf Steffan-Dewenter, the illustrious chair of the Department of Animal Ecology and Tropical Biology at the University of Würzburg in Germany. And without further ado, I am very pleased and honored to welcome here today in this episode of the 4th installment of the Unveil the Future podcast, a newly joined member of the VinFuture Prize pre-screening committee, Professor Ingolf Steffan-Dewenter. Professor Ingolf Steffan-Dewenter, what an honor to be talking to you for the first time ever. And this time, you're actually the special guest for the 4th installment of the Unveil the Future podcast. We are very honored to have you here joining us. Now, let's start this episode with a question related to your personal journey. Has there been any sort of moment or experience that ignited your passion to pursue a career in the field of animal ecology and tropical biology? And would you say that this was the sort of moment that defined your passion for the specific field?
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the invitation to this podcast. And yeah, that's a good question. So looking back, I have been always interested in nature. So even as a child, I felt a connection to nature. And so most of my life I lived in the countryside, and my father and my grandpa, they were beekeepers. So I started very early to get in contact with social insects, and then started also very early to keep bees by my own. I still do that. It's one of my passions. And so that perhaps was one of the starting points to go in this direction. It was for a long time clear for me to do the studies of biology and to work somehow with insects. But of course, the journey went on, and you can't predict how it develops. And what I'm doing now, that was not predictable in a way, but it's really exciting, and I enjoy it a lot.
So, as you mentioned, spending your time with your father and grandfather, who were also beekeepers, I would only imagine that bees played a relatively important role in shaping your career. And so would you say that your interactions with the bees, would you classify that as a defining moment or experience that truly shaped your passion that you once in wanting to be someone who pursue a career in this specific field?
Yeah, I think so. So starting with the bees, and don't know whether you have ever done it, but opening a bee colony, it's really fascinating to see how well ordered a social insect colony is, and how they share the work, and how successful they are also evolutionary. So that's really exciting experience to work with bees, and you learn a lot about nature. Also, you learn about the flower seasonality, which resources are important for a colony, and how they deal with cold extremes during winter or hot and dry extremes during the summer. So honeybees are really exciting species, and I still work a lot on them. But I might also mention that I very early learned there's not just one honeybee species, there are many wild bee species. And nowadays we know about 25,000 wild bee species on the globe. In Germany we have near to 600. So I was also fascinated by the diversity of insects, and the different ways how they use resources, how they forage on plants. So it was a starting point, but ecosystems and ecology is much broader than just honeybees.
And so looking at the big picture, what exactly motivates you? What is the thing that keeps you going to wanting to pursue and keep going on this path in the field of biodiversity and ecological conservation, and especially in the face of ongoing environmental problems?
Yeah, that's a complicated question. So actually there are different aspects that really motivate me. So first, I'm a scientist, so I'm really intrigued by ecosystems, by biodiversity, and I want to understand the very basic ways how these systems function. And you might know that in biology we had a period where most research was focused on going deeper and deeper into the details of the cell, of the molecular biology, and now we learn that we know much less about ecosystems. So we don't understand actually how these millions of different plant and animal species, not to talk about bacteria and fungi and so on, how they interact, how they coexist, how they shape all these functions that are provided by ecosystems. And that is so my basic motivation, really, to understand how ecosystems function and how they maintain the huge diversity that we find nowadays in all types of ecosystems. But then it comes, of course, to what humans are doing to the environment, and so I'm also really interested in the way how what we call global environmental change, how climate change and land use and loss of natural habitats and all the other factors that are impacting ecosystems, how they cause change in biodiversity, how they threaten also the functionality of ecosystems, and of course how we can change the way how we use the environment, how we manage ecosystems to in a positive way, that we maintain biodiversity, that we have sustainable land use, that we have coexistence of human societies and the million other species that inhabit the planet Earth. So that is also an important motivation for me. And perhaps third motivation is I'm also a university teacher, and I have many master and undergraduate and postdoc group members, and it's also really a fun part of my job to interact with these people, to train them, to see how they develop and how they also make a contribution to what you mentioned, sustainable land use, biodiversity conservation. So perhaps these are the main motivations for keeping me going.
Well, the ability to convey scientific ideas has always posed as a challenge, especially in specialized fields like yourself, like the fields that you're pursuing. And so with this in mind, I'm curious to know that which strategies would you apply in order to bridge the gap, to bridge the divide between public understanding and scientists like yourself?
Yeah, perhaps it's too much to say it's one strategy, and it's also a lot of learning by doing as a scientist, how you communicate your knowledge, how you transfer knowledge to society. And so I or we as a group, we have lots of experience in different strategies or ways how we can implement that. And one important aspect is certainly that we involve different actor groups from the beginning on in our research projects. That means that we don't decide we do a project in a definite way, but that we interact with farmers, with other land users, with NGOs, with conservation authorities, and try to shape a project in a way that it is most successful, that it implements perhaps new conservation measures on a landscape scale. And that is certainly one important aspect to involve many groups that are somehow using land or depending on biodiversity or making their living from different components, that they're involved from the beginning on. And that is very fruitful. It's also a very important learning process for us as scientists. And we are doing it in projects in the tropics. So I have several projects in Africa, in South America, and I actually started my career in tropical ecology in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia. And in all these projects, we involve many local groups in our research. And of course, we have all the other strategies. So we have lots of workshops with different farmer groups or beekeepers or conservationists. We write not only scientific publications for our peers, but we also write publications with very simple presentation of our findings in German or in EU projects, also in other national languages to communicate our research to the wider public. But it's really a challenge, and we now also see how quickly social media are developing, and we are behind. So we need to adapt and use also TikTok and other social media channels to communicate our results, because otherwise we fail to reach also the younger society members, and then that might be a problem to solve what we really need to solve: global environmental change.
Professor, I'm curious to know that are there any sort of projects that you are involved in, whether it's local or international, that you're particularly interested in, and that stands out to you as very memorable? And can you share with us some of the memories from executing and conducting such projects?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have a actually ongoing project where I have been involved for the last 5 years now, or 6 years now, and it's a project in Malawi, northern Malawi. And the starting point of this project is a local NGO, Soil, Food, Health and Environment. And this local NGO from Malawian people really aim to improve the livelihood conditions of very poor rural farmers in the region. And they did a lot of really positive work, and then did training on agro-environmental schemes and improving soil quality, and doing pest control without pesticides. And this project we joined and studied how efficient or how effective are these agro-environmental measures, and do they contribute to crop yields, to crop yield stability, but also to the diversity in the region of insects, of beneficial insects like pollinators or natural enemies of pest species. And so that was a great experience, because in this project we really worked together with the farmers, and farmers collected together with us data on insect diversity, or on the yields of the crops. And this way we could contribute knowledge, but we also saw how directly this is implemented in a local farmer community.
Speaking of pollinators, how has your research helped tackle the effects of climate change on pollinators and the plant communities? And what sort of strategies would you recommend to mitigate this sort of impacts?
Yeah, so that's only, that's part of the question. So with pollinators are impacted by climate change, but actually my starting point in my research was the question how land use change is impacting pollinators. And so we started actually with selecting landscapes that differ in the way how they are managed. And that was about 20 years ago, a really innovative research design, that we didn't consider individual habitats, but we considered landscape that are composed of different habitat types, let's say really high amount of agricultural land use, or a high proportion of near natural habitats. And we could show that pollinator diversity is much higher in these landscapes, where you have also remaining near or high quality habitat, and that this is really important also for crop yields. And later on we shifted to a study design that addressed the effect of climate change. And what we are doing is we are using elevation gradients. So we are studying the diversity of pollinators and the interactions with plants along elevation gradients in mountain areas. And so you have warm conditions at the lower elevation, and colder conditions at the higher elevations. And this way we can use this elevation gradient as a space or time model system to understand how future interactions between plants and pollinators might change in a warmer climate, and what happens with pollinators that are, for example, cold adapted. So that is one important approach to have at least some understanding how climate warming will affect pollinator diversity and the interactions with plants and the pollination services in the future.
Well, the ongoing loss of biodiversity for now, it stands as a challenge to not just scientists like yourself, but also, I'm sure, for the whole globe to pay more attention to. And so in the face of daunting realities such these times, how do you exactly navigate between just expressing and conveying messages regarding this sort of problems, but at the same time, still maintaining a sense of hope and motivation for the broad audience?
Yeah, that's sometimes a difficult task, because so I'm observing the long-term trends, and I'm seeing that there's a decline in biodiversity, that there's still increasing temperatures, that there's a loss of tropical rainforests. So we see a lot of concerning change in the environment, and so that is one aspect. But on the other hand, and also with our research, we can show that there are solutions that could mitigate the negative impacts we are causing currently, and sustainable land use is one important component, that we maintain biodiversity to improve, for example, pollination services, to have natural pest control of pests instead of relying on pesticides. And that is one of my motivations, that I see a lot of potential to change the way how we manage ecosystems, agricultural and forestry ecosystems. But of course, I also see an urgent need to better protect the remaining natural habitats, and to do much more to halt or reverse climate warming. So we have tremendous challenges with the environment, and on the other hand, I'm convinced that societies are able to respond if they really take action and recognize the long-term negative impacts that this global change will have. And so asking why I don't get, let's say, depressed or whatever, but so it's again, it's the people around me that are who are really motivated to see the benefits of different land use systems and of a transformative change. And as long as there are so many people who are positive and convinced that the change is possible, I think we have no reason to convey only negative messages, but also to make clear there is a lot of hope, but we need to take action and really change many aspects of what is going on in societies on a global scale.
And so before we wrap up questions regarding your career and move on to questions related to your new role as a new member of the VinFuture Prize pre-screening committee, I'm just curious to know, what do you consider to be the most underestimated, the most misunderstood facets when it comes to pollination ecology, and how do these factors ripple through, and how does it exactly affect the broader ecosystems?
So the last, let's say, 20 years, we learned a lot about pollination ecology, about pollinator diversity. But it's as always, if you answer one question, you have 2 or 3 new questions, and we still know very little about the pollination biology of many plant species. So there are about 300,000 plant species known on the planet Earth, and there, as mentioned, just 25,000 pollinator species or bee species described. We have many other pollinator taxa like flies or beetles or butterflies and more. So it's a huge diversity of pollinators with different life history traits, and we still know not that much about their basic biology. But also from an ecology perspective, we we understand very little how populations are regulated. So whether bee populations are limited by resources provided by flowers, or whether they are limited by nesting sites, or whether they are limited by predators or parasitoids, and how this depends on the habitat size or the landscape in which they occur, or how climate change will change these regulating factors. So there's a lot of basic ecological questions that is unknown. And what is also not well known so far is how we can really manage wild pollinators in a way that we change the habitat conditions in a landscape to restore, improve the diversity of pollinators in a landscape. So there are also many applied questions that still need to be addressed.
And now for the last part of our interview, of our podcast, I would like to move on to your new role that you just took on as a new member of the VinFuture Prize Pre-Screening Committee. And we're just so honored to have you as a new member, bringing new expertise and new perspectives to this year award season. And so the question must be asked, what exactly motivated you to accept this role, and what sort of contribution do you hope to dedicate to this process?
Yeah, so I was really excited to get this invitation, and I had a look on the homepage, and I saw the main aims of the foundation, and I thought that is exactly the direction I would like to support. It's really trying to encourage people to make transformative changes, to use technology, but also perhaps not technology in a narrow sense, but also in a wider sense, with improved environmental management, to improve the livelihood conditions of human societies. I think that's the most important aim you can have, and I'm really glad to have been invited and to support this ambition.
As a scientist deeply engaged in ecological system, how do you exactly envision the VinFuture Prize contributing to raising awareness and driving action in the field of sustainability?
Yeah, so a little bit as mentioned, so I think there are many exciting developments also in the way how we develop concepts for environmental management, and these developments built on an ecosystem and process understanding, and they are not so much directed to having a technological solution, having a new machine or whatever, but really to make use of the understanding of an ecosystem, to manage it in a way that it is transforming agricultural and forestry systems, but also to improve livelihoods in urban systems where so many people live in sometimes not very green or environmentally friendly conditions. So I see a huge chance and many possibilities for transferring this knowledge and to better making use of it. And I think the VinFuture Foundation can be one trigger to really foster this process.
And for the last part of our podcast, I'm curious to know, what kind of advice would you give to the younger generation who aspire to pursue the same career path that you are doing right now?
Yeah, I think the most important aspect is that you do what you really want to do, and that you don't consider too much, oh, it could be good for my career, it could be good for my income, or it could be an easy job, but that you really dedicate your energy, your knowledge, your ambition to what you want to do. And of course, I'm extremely happy about many people who want to make a substantive change in the environment and do more for biodiversity conservation. So I think that's of such utmost importance that we can only hope and motivate as many people as possible to go in this direction.
And that was it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the very end of today's podcast, the episode 4 of the Unveil the Future podcast. I would like to express a deep gratitude to Professor Ingolf Steffan-Dewenter for joining us in this episode as a special guest. And to our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. Your support and your engagement have been instrumental in shaping the success of our show, and we hope that the perspectives and knowledge shared in this episode has been something that you can resonate with and that will propel you towards your future endeavors. And with deep gratitude, thank you very much for listening, and we hope to speak to you once again. Thank you very much, and goodbye.